So welcome back to everybody. We hope you had a good Christmas and a good New Year. We've been open for about a week or so now, and we've spent the past week goal setting and planning for the year, both personal and business related. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yes. So I'm hoping that we can learn something about how to set goals and more about the goals that we've got for the business and so on.
Yeah. Well, I've never really in the past been one that sets goals. I used to just sort of drift along. What happens and deal with things as they come up. But seeing as we run so many different projects and stuff, I have started in the last few years to do goal setting. And I have noticed a difference, I think, over the past couple of years. I think we've done a lot more and achieved a lot more than we used to.
Yeah, potentially. But then could it just be coincidental? Like things coming together?
No, because I guess some of it would have happened without the goal setting, but I do think it has helped, because it gives you something to aim for, right? It's not just your whatever comes up.
Potentially.
So things like planning for these sorts of podcasts and email campaigns and social media campaigns, and it has helped push things forward because you know what you're aiming for.
Yeah. What do you think of this quote? Setting goals is the only way to fail in life.
I mean, you can fail without setting goals.
So that was from a TED talk that this guy Emmanuel Acro did. I watched his sort of TED talk about setting goals, about how they sometimes lead to you losing self-esteem and confidence when you don't actually reach that goal.
I think that comes down to what you set. If you were to set a goal that was too far out of reach, maybe without realizing it, or even if you do realize it, then you might not make it. But then there's a whole shoot for the shoot for the stars, and you might aim for them. You might get the moon or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think it can help push you forward, but it might not always necessarily be the best thing.
Yeah.
From a mental health perspective.
He also brought up the fact that people tend to underestimate themselves when they do set goals. So actually setting goals is a limiter in terms of what you can achieve.
But again, that comes down to what you set.
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm going to talk about this later on, but it comes back to the Pareto principle, 80-20. If you set your goal to around 80% of what you think is out of reach, although around 20% is out of reach.
Yeah,
80% of that would be the moon rather than the stars.
I
think most things fall into that 80-20 category. So it's down to how you set it, really.
Was it James Cameron sort of agrees with you? So he says, if you set your goals ridiculously high and it's a failure, you will fail above everyone else's success.
Yeah.
But then you're still failing. So that's true.
The thing is, it's down to how you view it. I wouldn't view it as a failure. Like personally, I would, in the back of my mind, I would know I'm not going to reach every single thing I've got on this list or whatever it is, or if the goal's way too far out of reach. So, say I was in a goal setting seminar on Saturday.
Yeah.
One of the guys said his aim was to get like 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. He's currently on like 10. And then they were talking for a while, the host and this guy. And he said, well, what happens if you get 30? Would you feel like a failure? Would you whatever? He said, no, I'd be over the moon. I'd be amazed by that. Yeah. So he's aiming for 50, but deep down he knows that 30 would be a success. So it's how you perceive it rather than the goal itself.
Perfectionism is quite an interesting concept because on the one hand, every single successful person says don't aim to be perfect because like you ultimately won't get things done. And yet like there's some key, according to the academic literature, there's a lot of things that perfectionists do which do lead to success over a long term.
I would find myself in that.
It's more nuanced than people make out. Yeah. And one of the things that like we said, or I think I told you,
Yeah, it was over lunch yesterday. We were talking about
it was more people's attitude to failure that is the limiting factor rather than perfectionist qualities. So like a perfectionist is more likely to feel like a failure if they don't achieve the perfect thing, and then that failure puts them off from doing other things. And I think it's really similar with goal setting, because like if you are a total perfectionist and you're setting goals and you've got a fragile sense of self, really, so as soon as you fail in something and you fail to reach your goal, you lose all your energy, your motivation and everything like that, and you stop. I've
definitely been victim to that in the past.
I think it's quite easy to do, especially if you're, like I said, more on the sort of perfectionist spectrum.
Which I always have been. I've always been a little bit OCD and like things to be exact and whatever else. But again, it's 80-20. I've learned that for delegation, for example, for stepping more away from the classes and doing more of my overall business building stuff, I have struggled, and Suraj said this as well. He said, "You're really good at delegating." I was like, I never was, because I'm of the mindset, if you want something done, you do it yourself. If you want something done properly, you do it yourself. But after reading and watching all the business stuff that I look at, they say if you can delegate the job and that person can do it 80% of what you've perceived to be 100, delegate it.
I've generally not found that to be a problem, apart from in teaching. I find it hard to let go in that way. But I think it's more about letting go than not believing that someone has the ability to do it.
Well, it's just other people, they don't do it wrong. Other people do it in a different way.
Yeah.
It could achieve the same result, but it's just like you don't perceive that as being the best.
It's like different people with different styles. Yeah. When it comes to
or like it might take longer. It might, like I would think, okay, well I can do that in half the time if I did that and that. But you have to let other people
fail
in order to
learn how
to do it properly. So yeah.
I've never really had that problem. That's all meant. I think you've got more of this
definitely.
thing. So like, I've never had as much of a problem of like trusting someone to do something. But then I do think when someone sort of breaks your trust or doesn't sort of live up to your expectations, that's quite hard to take, because I like to believe in people. My view is goal setting can be an important thing, but there's so many there's so many things that you need to work into the process to make it productive. So why do you think initially it's an important aspect of life?
I never used to do this sort of stuff, but I think that might have just been because of the number of things we were doing, as in there weren't that many things we were doing. So you were able to keep it in your mind, maybe a little notebook or whatever else. But
because it's more obvious when you're, I think when you got, when you're at school, you go, okay, I'm just going to get on to that rung of that. Like everything's set out for you. Like
your goals are laid out for you.
Path. And then it becomes a bit more complex when you like reach 18, go off to university, then your goals sort of.
Well, I think you still have a similar sort of goal. It's like, well, you've got to get this project or essay or whatever done.
Yeah.
You get given your deadlines and that sort of thing. I think even when you go to work, say you're working for a company, they will give you targets.
Yeah.
The reason I started doing it now is because we are the company.
Yeah.
We have to set our own targets.
True.
And we are running God knows how many things.
Yeah.
We're working on at least 10, 15 projects at a time, right?
But then does that mean that...
I can't keep that all in my head. I mean, I used to be really good at it. But nowadays, I tend to write stuff down more. I should be utilizing things like Trello and Notion and those like project tracking things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do think it is important, but I think it is... The level of importance depends on your stage of life and what you're doing at that point.
Yeah. I actually think like most people don't necessarily need to set goals. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't. It just means that I think most people can go through their entire life not setting goals.
But most people just amble through life.
That's true.
And I'm not one of those people anymore.
Yeah.
I want to achieve more. Therefore, I have to
But I still
put things in place to do that.
I still think some people can go through their whole life not really set goals and actually do pretty well. Like, but it depends what your definition of pretty well is.
But again, it depends where you're working. If you're working for a company, your goals are set for you. Like you can
Yeah,
still do well. You can still earn a decent amount of money,
Yeah.
whatever else. You might not have the same sense of achievement.
You say that
Personally,
but
some people do, but
you say that, but I think actually a lot of CEOs, like executives, business owners, are they happy? Like that's
no. I've seen interviews with like clips of like Elon Musk, for example, who's just said, people might think that they want to be me. Trust me, you don't want to be me. You don't want to be inside my head.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to deal with the stuff I have to deal with. It's like you can't just pick one aspect of somebody's life and say, I want to be that person because they are famous, they have money, whatever else. You have to take the whole picture.
Yeah. You got to take all the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's in equilibrium. You have to take the pain in order to have the gain or whatever,
Yeah.
You have to do, you're going to have to go through that pain in order to achieve.
Like there's loads and loads of people who, if they were to compare themselves to Elon Musk, they're probably way more happy than he is.
Yeah.
Despite all the things that he's achieved.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the dangers of when you set stratospheric goals, that like it might look impressive to other people.
Mm-hmm.
You might never be fulfilled.
No. But I mean, it's not everything. Again, this goal setting thing I did on Saturday, like 3 hours long, and we had to go through and do, 1 year goals, 3 year goals, 5 year goals, reflect on 2023, what were your achievements, blah, blah, blah. You had to write your own eulogy, which is kind of, very emotional. You write down all the bullet points and chucked into ChatGPT and it read out your eulogy and what you've achieved and whatever else. But that was really emotional. But the one thing that most people put is the relationships and the family stuff.
Yeah.
Even though it was like a business goal setting seminar, the thing that made people the most content in life was their friends, their family, their dog, whatever, their relationships in their life. It wasn't, I achieved this much money per month, or I achieved this many subscribers on whatever.
So why? What's the importance of setting goals then? If that's not the thing that brings the ultimate value?
But you can set goals for that too. You can set goals for that. I want to see my family 3 times a week. I want to, I want to meet new friends, whatever else. They're still goals.
That's so true, because as you'll see when I read out my goals later, they're more sort of personal than,
Yeah, so am mine.
Yeah. I don't
know how much of I'm going to read out, but so am I. Yeah.
Oh no, I think I'll just say the goals, because otherwise it will just take ages because it's important as well to, I think when you set a goal, to think about like what it takes to actually get to that.
Yeah. So this is what I was going to talk about.
There's measurability, which is quite complicated, I think, especially with these, like these more personal goals. Yeah. So it's fair enough if you've got a business or something like that, you might set like, okay, I want to reach like this much revenue, or I want to, or even if you run a YouTube channel, you might say I need X subscribers or whatever. Yeah, which is all part of my business goals anyway. But I think with like some of those personal goals, in terms of like especially your mental development or something like that, they're sometimes a bit more difficult to measure, but then it doesn't make them less important, and it is possible to measure them. It's just that the measurement tools that you use are different. They're different, yeah. So goals for the business. Classic business goal, more clients. I wanted to increase by about 30%. So is that so like on a revenue basis? Yeah, on a revenue basis. Yeah. Yeah. Rather than 30% more clients, because well, it's sort of related. It's similar. It'll be similar, yeah. It was the same thing. I put 30%, but in my brain I thought 2025 is probably more realistic, but I aim for 30, hopefully hit 25. And that's across both locations. Yeah.
The second goal I had was getting a third centre. We did go in for a third centre last year, and we were second in line to get it. But the landlord of that centre had a pre-existing relationship with the other person we were competing with, and they went with them. Well, we hit lockdown less than a year after opening our second location, so we had to restart all over again. And that did stop us from starting our franchise, which is what we were looking to do. So by the end of this year, I want to get the franchise manuals up and running, like written, and get that whole process going. Moving on to YouTube, it's probably a small goals for a lot of people, but 500 subs is the goal for the end of the year. And also get some more clarity on what our channel is, what our audience looks like, what they want, whether there's conflicting audiences within the same thing. And we are doing a YouTube course at the moment as well, an online course. So I'll get to the end of that and that will give me some more clarity. I've got 2 more. Network with other creators to get guests in these chairs. Yes. Maybe some guest blog posts and that sort of thing. And then going on from blog posts, get the website a bit more tidy, running a bit better with some better content. Yeah. And more content. Maybe some more downloadables, maybe some more paid for items. Which links into what you're about to say. So
I always think it's a bad idea to focus on too many things at once, especially as I'm more ADD. So like I need to have maybe highly concentrated ideas of what to do before, and I can't veer off into other things, otherwise I'm likely to not achieve them. So the first goal for the business was to bring about 10,000 views to the site per month. At the moment, we're hovering around 2,000 to 3,000, and I'm not happy with that at all. So there's a lot of sub goals connected to this, but I'm not going to go in too much into that because it can be a little dull. But it's basically all about SEO and producing better content and that kind of thing, the stuff that Prajay briefly mentioned. But I'm going to sort of concentrate quite heavily on that. That will take quite a lot of time, and it's quite a big goal. The second goal is quite difficult, but it's replacing all my tuition hours. So to take me away so much from the day-to-day managing of the centre, so I can focus more on these things, these sort of more holistic ideas and business goals.
Which is something that
I struggle with. Well, it's not just that.
You enjoy teaching. I understand why you wouldn't want to get rid of that. But as an now owner of the business, it's slightly different, your sort of role. So
and I've also found it difficult because I think I've identified that I probably need about 3 people to replace me, like fully. Because there's very few people who can teach, say, Key Stage 1 to 4. That's something that I need to work on.
See, I would say that makes you better as someone that covers when somebody's off sick, because you could replace those 4 Key Stage 1, 2, 3, 4 with 3 or 4 different people, and if any of them are off sick, you can jump in. So I think that makes more.
Yeah, that's true. But there's a lot of classes that I take now, and also there's a lot of people who keep requesting specifically for me, and I need to find a way of.
I had that problem.
Yeah.
I teach probably about 4 hours a week now. Yeah. Whereas before it was every day. But what you'll find is clients usually request the first person they speak to. So or the first person they have as a teacher. So if, say like Kyra was someone's maths teacher. Yeah. If they were to come back in again, they would specifically ask for that person. If you start introducing new clients to other people, they'll request them.
Because it's a people business at the end of the day.
But your face is still there. Like, people still like seeing me around. Yeah. Like, they know that I'm around.
There was sad when they were like one of the kids' parents came up and was like, where's Prajay? Is he around these days? It's a bit sad. And I was
I've had that, yeah.
and I was like, no, he's around. He's just he's sorting some stuff out. Like,
Yeah.
So
I've had that. But it's even if you hand your classes off to other people,
yeah,
the fact that you're still there, and the fact that shows that you're still involved, because people don't know how the business is set up. But it also shows that you trust that person that's taken it.
it's like when I come back to Seven Kings, because I'm like literally never here.
Apart from recording days.
And then one of the students sees me and they're like, oh, he's back. And then
I always tell them that I killed you and took your classes. Like, where? He's in Epping Forest somewhere.
This is almost true.
It is kind of true, minus the killing part. Like, you walked in the other day and like, he's not dead, he's here.
My third goal, it's ridiculously achievable. So I was like, this can be a nice thing. So replace my laptop.
Yeah.
It's reached the point where it can no longer really do basic tasks almost.
I've been trying to get you to do that for months.
Yeah, but I believe now is the time. Mm-hmm. So I'm accepting that. It's about 8 years old. It's 9 years now. 2024. So,
yeah, about eight and a half, yeah.
Almost 9 years old. So I need to replace that, especially
older than the students.
And also I'm doing more and more intensive things, I think, with my laptop. So it requires a bit more speed. So that's a nice, easy one, which is nice. It's nice when goals are very, very easy to achieve. I know it's not really much of a goal, but it will.
I mean, it's expensive. It's not like a cheap.
Yeah, it will increase my productivity significantly.
Yeah, just please don't break it.
I've put on here, once I've sort of sorted out a lot of the sort of site issues and that kind of thing, then sort of doing a weekly blog, so doing 2 blogs a week or something like that for the business will be sort of a goal for later in the year. So reaching that point where I've sorted out a lot of the current issues with it, and then can move on to actually creating more content, because at the moment I think we've got so much content, but it needs a lot of organizing and improving. And then my 5th one is to create more digital products.
Yeah, so similar to
and downloadables. Now I haven't said how many digital products or anything like that, but I think that's something that I can define probably later in the year, because I'll have more of an idea of the sort of level of resources that we need once I sort of go through the site. So that's also an important point about setting goals, is sometimes like you can refine your goals as you move through a process. I think that's worth sort of emphasizing, because I always find it's that way. Whenever I set out to do something, there is usually sort of a point of change along the way that helps me improve my initial target. And there's things that you learn along the way as well that you don't know are possible. So for instance, I started writing a blog, and in writing I started my own personal blog. I mean, we'll link.
We're going to come on to that in a minute.
Yeah, we'll link them in the description. Prajay's and mine. In doing it, I did so much research, and in doing that research, I've found things that I can implement into the business too. And I found that I could change implementing these goals, the process will change slightly from the result of what I've learnt about. That's an important part of goal setting, is be flexible with it sometimes. So obviously you've got your main goal, but then the process that you take to reach that goal, or the system you put in place, be prepared to be open-minded about changing aspects of the system that aren't working, or where you can produce a better result. James Clear said, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Mm. I definitely think there's something in that, because like I said, when you set goals, there'll be a whole load of systems that you put behind that goal. So even the goal ends up being this nebulous thing over here, but the systems come to the forefront of your everyday life. Like they're the things that start to matter.
I guess the systems are a bunch of mini goals that lead you to the main goal.
Yeah.
Because it's always good to break things down. Like I've been taught, if you've got a big goal, break it into 3 parts, then break those 3 things into three is just the number, isn't it? 3, and break that down more and more. You've got habit tracking stuff. Yeah. I've started using an app called Streaks, which is quite good. I mean, my devices are all over here, but that's a really good app. There's things like habit stacking, which is again from James Clear's work.
Yeah.
So these are all mini goals that add up to get you to your bigger destination.
But yeah, I get what he means though, because they're not really goals as such. Like as in they're not really mini goals. They're more like habits, like he said, things that you put in place to reach the goal. So I do see that distinction becoming very important. I also think when you make the goal your main focus alone, what happens is when you reach a goal, you feel disillusioned and you don't enjoy the journey towards the goal. And I think that's
the main thing.
I think that's actually a really salient point. So I think it's clever what he said there, that it is about systems rather than the goal itself. Although, I don't know, the goal sort of exists, which is kind of a strange thing, but I get how it's not the main focus. It's like, you know, well, I was talking to Surav and it was about sort of 11 plus prep. So your main goal might be get a past 11 plus, right? Or your main goal might be to get a 9 in GCSE maths or something like that. But Surav would say that's not a good goal to have. He'd say focus on mastering each topic so you understand it inside out. Reach a level of mastery in it. And the success will come as a result of that. And that's kind of a similar idea. I think that's true. Because when you focus, like, you can fail the 11 plus, you can fail to get a 9. But on reflecting on that process, not thinking so much of the final point, but thinking about the journey that you've taken to do it. Did you put in that work? Did you work hard enough? Did you implement systems in place to sort of bring you to that point? That's where the satisfaction comes in. Yeah. It's not from achieving the goal, because like I said, the achievement tends to be the thing that's disappointing at the end, because you're like, you reach that point and you're like, okay, well, there's so many people who've become billionaires and stuff like that, millionaires. They've achieved incredible things, like for us, like looking at them. But do they actually feel happy? No,
it's an initial dopamine hit. Oh, I've done it. Yeah. And then what now?
Yeah, that's it. And then a lot of them end up going, what do I do next? Like,
they just start. Do you know what most of them do? They start a new business.
Yeah,
they do.
That's true. Yeah.
It reminds me of Only Fools and Horses. You know, where the one where they actually become millionaires, and he goes back. He's got his big mansion, his snooker table. He's playing by himself, and he goes back to his old flat.
Yeah.
And he's like pretending with the briefcase to run down. You know.
Yeah. So
it's an initial. It's a spike, and then it's.
And that's the thing as well, because that's a goal.
That was always the goal.
But then it's the journey that's the
fun part.
The fun part, and because and that's the thing with like lottery winners, for instance, is like if they get a windfall, it's
most
like
of them
is
that
well they might not, but it's not as fulfilling as building it yourself. Like whether or not they
I wouldn't want to win. I just wouldn't. I'd want to be doing what I'm doing now.
No, I totally get what you mean, because it just feels like
you'd be like, I'll buy a house, I'll invest here and here, and then what? I'm not building anything. I would start doing something different. We're going to go into it now. I've already started doing something different this year.
Yeah.
Because even building this is not enough. I want to keep doing other stuff. So
I get what you mean. It's like I've thought about sort of retiring early and that kind of thing.
I'd go out of my mind. I would go out of my mind.
No, I'd get it initially, and then I'd suddenly go, okay, what next? Like, what's the next thing to achieve?
So those were the business goals. We're going to go on to briefly talk about what our personal goals are, because I think we've both at the same time at the end of last year seem to have done the same thing.
That's true, yeah.
I don't know if that's telling of anything, I don't know. But we're the sort of people that can't really sit still for too long. I know that I can't.
That's true, yeah.
So I set myself some personal goals for this year, and I never really do New Year's resolutions, but for some reason just felt inclined to get some stuff done.
Yeah.
So my first goal was to build a personal website, which I have started during the 7 days I got off between December 24th and a reopening on the 3rd. That goal I actually started to achieve during that 1 week off. And I wanted to start blogging, doing my own blogs.
Yeah.
I've never been much of a writer.
Well, started writing. That was your initial thing that you said. Like,
I wanted to get
me.
better at writing, yeah. Because I've never been much of a writer. Even at school, I was not much of a writer. I preferred building things physically, non-physically. How do I word that? Sorry, my point is I like to build things. So like DT was my favourite subject, but I also like to do music tech and produce songs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's technically building something, but it's not like a physical thing. I just like making things, like creating stuff. So I wanted to get better at writing. So I have started a personal blog. I've done one post so far, and the post is this. Literally what I'm reading. I'll leave a link to it as well. It's literally what I'm reading out now. Because I found that all of everything I've ever made is scattered around. So I have DJ stuff in one place, music production stuff in another place, graphic design work in another website, photography is on Instagram, and everything's just everywhere. And after following a lot of these business people, productivity people on YouTube and reading about how it all works, they have a personal brand.
Yeah.
And their personal brand is they have their website and all of their stuff is there. Every book they've written, videos, whatever, it's all in one place. So I wanted to get that done. I want to start building a personal brand. Read 9 books. Again, I was never much of a reader or writer. But last year I've been actively telling myself that I am a reader and trying to incremental steps, atomic habits, bit by bit.
Yeah. And then it's
start by reading 1 page a day, and then it moves to 3 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. Well, just gradually building it up. And now I read pretty much every day. Last year I read 8 books, so this year I went for 9. And I use Goodreads to track it all. So it's all on there. One of the books was Daily Stoic.
Which we
Ryan
bought.
Holiday. Yeah, we both bought the same book at the same time.
It was like pretty much...
Yeah, literally the same.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
Was it the same day? Like
it was, same weekend, yeah.
It's crazy.
Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. 366 Stoic quotes. 1 for each day of the year.
Because it's a leap year.
And it's a leap year this year, so it works very well.
Mm-hmm.
I read one this morning. I can't remember what it is right now. I think it was something about vices and habits.
But it'll be about internalizing those ideas.
Yeah.
That's the thing with when you read say you read a ridiculous number of books, it's about
remembering it.
It's like, it's all very well reading 54 books or whatever a year, but what do you actually absorb and implement? And I think 9 is probably a good. It's more than, if you read those 9 books well, then it's more valuable. And
it's a mixture. I pretty much exclusively read self-help books, business books, or biographies. Rarely read fiction. But this is including, audiobooks as well.
Yeah.
So that's that. I won't go into too much more on that, but that's there. One of the two scary ones. Start therapy, which is something I literally put off for the entirety of 2023. Just didn't do it.
Yeah.
But I think it will unlock a lot of doors for me. It will get me. It will help me to achieve my goals.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to break everything down first, and then rebuild myself. It's kind of how it works. This one I'm not too sure about. Personal YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying making videos. I don't always do videos on what I want on this channel. So I'm thinking about doing that. I'm not sure what the brand's going to be. I'm not sure how it's going to work. I don't know if I'm going to be using this space. I haven't thought it through. But I do have an idea for my first video, which I'll come back to because my next point is to journal more. So I've done Stephen Bartlett's The Diary, the journaling, 12 weeks. I started on January 1st, 2023. And you check in with your health, finance, blah, blah, blah. You make, 0 to 5 thing. You get a score and it tracks it at the end of every week so you can see it, all play out. You scan a QR code. It gives you feedback on your scores and it produces or throws up 3 videos related to where they think you are in your journey. The videos weren't always completely accurate for my situation, but they were still useful. And obviously he's got contacts that know all this sort of stuff from doing his Diary of a CEO podcast, So he's called on a few of those people to make videos. Just a couple minutes, 2-3 minutes. I then last year finished that, stopped journaling for a bit, bought myself a notebook, did journaling just unprompted. But the regularity dropped. Like I wouldn't be doing it every day. I started doing it every day, then it went to every couple of days and it sort of dropped off. This year I've gone to start Mind Journal, which is prompted and you can track how you feel and that sort of thing. So I think my first video, if and when I do start my own channel, is going to be Stephen Bartlett Diary versus Mind Journal versus unprompted blank journaling and what I found.
Yeah.
Because I did actually look to see if there was a comparison between the two when I was buying Mind Journal, and I couldn't see one. Content gap, all that.
It's interesting that you've put journal more as your sort of goal.
Yep.
And then mine's implemented into my sort of holistic goal. And as in journals sort of part of a system that can lead to...
Yeah. Well, it's still part of a system that can, it comes back to having all the different things in your mind and not have, back in the day when you had a couple things to think about, you could just internalize and you could do it in your head. But there is so much going on in personal life and business life that it's good to get that down on paper, just to organize your thoughts, if anything else. So those are my personal goals. Don't think I've missed anything.
No.
Personal blog.
Yeah.
Which is part of the website. Yeah. Those are my personal goals. So let's go on to yours. I mean, yours were pretty similar in some ways.
Yeah. They were similar in some ways, but I'd say what I've done is I've done each goal and they're sort of these strange, again, we talked about that measurability thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when something's quantitative, it's easy to understand what measurement would sort of help you establish that you've reached that goal. Like I said, like 50,000 subscribers or whatever.
Yeah.
But mine are so sort of nebulous they're a bit different. So I find that the measurement tools that you use to understand whether you've reached a goal, and some of these are sort of not, they're not like an endpoint as such. They're just things to like continually work at. In that case, you're gonna have different indicators. So I'll just give you my 4 goals. So my first goal is to become more emotionally intelligent. Now, that's like, as you see, there's no like numbers necessarily involved with that.
No, it's a continuous growth.
Yes.
Just,
but there's certain indicators that might help me establish whether I've sort of got closer to that. So it's more about my personal relationships with other people, and then if I gauge them to be improving, then I've sort of not reached my goal, but I think I've got closer to it.
You've improved yourself in some way.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to go the other way. I'm like in terms of emotional intelligence stuff, I'm like the other end. I need to bring it.
Yeah.
I need to dial it down a bit.
Because I'm kind of super logical. Sometimes I think I miss stuff because of that, and it's probably the ADD a little bit as well. So my second goal is to become closer to my authentic self. Again, it sounds a bit like nebulous and strange.
No, but I get what you mean, because
and that basically means like you need to, well, what I want to become is a bit more honest overall. So honest with what I think and actually understand my own thoughts better, which is something that, I don't know, some people probably don't. They probably go, okay, well, I think this, therefore this. But then I think with
no filter.
with me, it's a lot more complicated, that relationship. So
well, I think as you grow up, you learn to create.
Yeah, you develop a sense of
personas.
self.
And you wear different masks in different situations.
Yes, yeah. Which is a good thing, I think. Like the fact that you're able to do that. But then my problem is I don't know which one's the real me anymore.
Yeah.
And so I feel a bit lost in that way. I think the thing is that, again, how will you measure that? I think it'll come across in terms of the confidence that I feel in the decisions that I take and that kind of thing. So it's a bit strange, but that's my second goal. So my goal 3 is reduce dependence on pleasure and short-term fulfillment.
I think there's everyone could do with a bit of that.
Yeah. I think modern society is brings up so many sort of problems with this related to this.
Yeah.
So everything is designed for short-term fulfillment rather than long-term aims and goals and that kind of thing. And what I want to do is I want to sort of wean myself off that in as many ways as I can. So, for instance, one thing that I have done in my life is I don't really drinking alcohol, because I don't think it's usually the reason why we drink that is to sort of remove a sort of social barrier in a sense.
It's to remove the masks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be reliant on those things. And it's also about dopamine and the reward system in our bodies. What tends to happen is people can become addicted to things that give that dopamine release, or spike, and that overall is not good because you can end up becoming dependent on it. Now, that doesn't mean that dopamine is bad. It's obviously not, otherwise we wouldn't have it. It's actually the thing that helps you get out of bed in the morning. It's extremely important that we have dopamine. People with Parkinson's disease struggle to actually create dopamine in the first place. So ultimately, if you had like a life without dopamine, you'd have Parkinson's disease.
Yeah, it's like everything. You need the balance, right?
But I do think that the balance is set in a certain direction, especially in modern society and for many people.
Yeah, it's we won't go into a whole thing, but it's set up like that on purpose, you know.
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
because
like, economically,
because otherwise people wouldn't buy anything.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. It's like there are balances, but because it's so set over that direction.
Yeah,
like,
but that's how people sell you stuff.
Yeah.
I definitely have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I know that I do.
And then my 4th goal is practicing gratitude. And that actually sort of links to what Prajay said about
The
journaling,
journaling
because
stuff.
that's actually part of that process. So those are my those are my goals for the year, and they might seem sort of hard to measure, but I do think they're achievable. As in, they're measurable, but in qualitative ways, not quantitative.
You'll know when it happens. You'll see an improvement.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing that I'm sort of looking for.
Yeah.
I could put purely quantifiable goals, like everything quantifiable, but it's I think it's
I think quantifiable goals are more
for business,
for business or like personal
wealth and that kind of
yeah, like wealth, or like I want to write 2 personal blogs a month, or I want to get this number of hits on my Pinterest or whatever it is.
yeah.
But with things like, I mean, even journaling, I want to write in my journal every day, which I've done every day apart from one, because I was out in the evening. But I've done it every day.
Yeah.
And I'm using the Streaks app to keep track of all of it.
That's where James Clear sort of comes back into it, like sort of creating a system. So I write at this time. It's like my blogging I do on a Friday generally, and I might carry on Sunday, depends.
Yeah, so it's similar to me. It's when we have our days off. So
yeah,
not that we're good at taking days off.
Yeah. So that's in a nutshell what we're sort of up to, and those are our goals for 2024.
Okay, I'm gonna leave you with 2 analogies that I wrote as part of the business email campaign that's going to be going out soon. Imagine that you are a captain of a ship, but you don't have a specific destination in mind. Instead, you decide to allow the wind and currents to guide you. But unfortunately, this approach could lead to disastrous consequences. You could be shipwrecked or end up on some unintended island. You could crash and sink, right? You've driven like a speedboat or a pedalo before, right? If you've driven any sort of boat before, you'll know that steering is easier when the boat is in motion. If you were to sit on the dock and move, it's really hard to push all the water out of the way. Essentially, once the boat is in motion, it's easier to steer, right? So therefore, it's best to set off in the general direction of your destination and make constant adjustments along the way. And that way, it's easier to ensure you reach your desired goal safely. And my second one, I mean, I haven't come up with these. These are well-known things. So another analogy, imagine you are a pilot, very similar. Pilots are taught a rule. It's called the 1 in 60 rule. Have you heard of that?
No.
So 1 in 60 rule states that for every 60 miles flown, a 1 degree error in heading will result in straying off course by 1 mile. So 1 degree, 60 miles means you're 1 mile off. So to put that into context, I did some maths yesterday. If a pilot is flying from JFK in New York to Gatwick in London, and they were off by 1 degree when they started off, and they continued without doing any of the course correction that we spoke about in the boat analogy, they would end up 24 miles off target, which is in the middle of the English Channel.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So if you have any New Year's resolutions or goals for this year, you can let us know. You can drop them in the comments if you're watching it on YouTube, or fill out the poll if it's on Spotify. If you're on Apple, you could give us a 5-star rating. That'll be useful. And we will see you next month.
The Education Lounge Podcast.